Thank you, Nathan, and to everyone for allowing me to be here today. I have to say that given how much time I've spent over the past 6 months managing the regional response to the COVID-19 crisis, I am genuinely grateful to be able to participate in this conference, talking about an issue about which I'm really passionate. It is inspiring and it's reassuring to know that our work to protect and restore our natural environment advances even during this unprecedented global crisis. You know, in moments like this, test the strength of our convictions and the fact that we're here working together now, engineers and scientists, attorneys, and just experts, demonstrates that our commitment remains strong. You know, if anything, the pandemic has reinforced our shared appreciation for the natural environment. And I'm reminded that this summer, we saw unprecedented numbers of people, of families who were out enjoying the parks and the trails, our shorelines and our urban green spaces as well. And these are all places that offer much needed respite during a time of uncertainty and stress, and indeed for many people, trauma. Yet far too many people in King County today, and particularly in communities of color, do not have equitable access to the places that connect us to nature. So that's one reason I launched my land conservation initiative. It's a commitment to protect the last best places in our region before they're lost forever. A highlight of my summer, and maybe this tells you as much about my summer as it does the highlight, but I was touring a new King County park, a park that we're opening in an urban unincorporated area kind of near White Center, and partnering with the community to build a trail in a neighborhood that currently has no public green space. That urban forest that has somehow survived but is now at risk of being cut down will instead continue to absorb and store carbon dioxide that contributes to climate change. It's projects like this that will help us achieve a goal I set in my proposal that I just delivered to the council for the county's next strategic climate action plan, to cut greenhouse gas emissions by half by the end of this decade. This mature forest will keep cooling the stream that flows through it and into salmon-bearing rivers. And the heavy rainfall that our region is so well known for, and that we could certainly use some of this week, will continue to fall on undeveloped land, reducing the amount of polluted stormwater that flows into our waterways. We're exploring opportunities for green stormwater infrastructure as well to leverage this land, to leverage this new park to achieve even better results for water quality. Which is a convenient segue to today's topic, reducing the amount of stormwater that washes pollutants into our streams, our rivers, our lakes, and our sound, threatening the health of our people and of the salmon and orca that have been central to the ecosystem and way of life here since time immemorial. We all saw the stakes in 2018 when a mother orca right here in Puget Sound carried her dead calf for days and weeks for all the world to see. We see it in the dramatic decline in native salmon runs. We can and we must do better. For those who live here today, for those who will follow us, for the sovereign tribal nations of the Salish Sea, and for the salmon and the orcas, for all the creatures themselves. The decisions we make now in the public and private sectors, as engineers and architects, as scientists and as stewards, will help shape the future of water quality and quality of life in our region for generations to come. You know, despite all the challenges we face, though, I do remain optimistic about our future because I know our past. I want to show you a picture of Lake Washington as it is today. Well, maybe not today. There's a little less smoke in this photo, but recently. It's sparkling blue water surrounded by forests and mountains and skylines. Now I want to show you a famous photo taken near the same spot in the 1950s. Tell me if you can spot the difference. No, none of those are me. I wasn't around yet, but that was Lake Washington. Foul-smelling water, beaches too polluted to enjoy, water that was toxic for fish. But our region united. And in 1958, voters created Metro, which built a regional wastewater treatment system based on how we are connected rather than on arbitrary political boundaries. And within just 10 years, we had built a regional sewage system that dramatically improved water quality. It's an inspiring success story of multiple jurisdictions working together to achieve an ambitious goal that none could have reached acting alone. Now, today, our regional system treats 66 billion gallons of wastewater and stormwater each year. And it has kept up with demand even as the county's population has tripled. It's a remarkable testament to outstanding work by our highly trained county employees and to the private firms whose design and engineering expertise helped us build a reliable system in an enormously complex natural and urban environment. We now treat wastewater for the vast majority of the 2.3 million residents of King County. But each year, some 118 billion gallons of stormwater never makes it into any treatment system. I want to show you a chart based on recent findings from our Water and Land Resources Division. This is really fascinating. You see those two red dots. It's kind of Mars and Jupiter. We can see the amount of untreated combined sewer overflow compared to the untreated stormwater that pollutes the waterways of King County. Over the next decade, we will invest another $9 billion, just King County will invest another $9 billion to improve water quality. And those are much needed investments. They have merit and they reflect the values of our region. And we will gladly invest that $9 billion and more if we can to ensure water quality in our region. My commitment as King County Executive is to ensure that each public dollar we invest delivers the best outcomes as soon as possible. And that is the centerpiece of my Clean Water, Healthy Habitat initiative. I launched it last fall. I've directed our staff scientists and experts to work with our partners to recommend which investments will produce the best results the soonest for the health of people and fish and the orca. We're dedicating significant resources to this this year to compare packages of actions that we could take to improve water quality. And that can include traditional infrastructure, increasing tree canopy, bioretention, removing creosote-treated pilings, many more strategies. Each of these actions is a proven way to improve water quality. Now, we're going to explore which combinations of actions in specific geographic areas will get us the best outcomes the soonest. I want to show you a slide of what we refer to as the Water Quality Benefits Evaluation Toolkit. And by the way, if anyone wants to recommend a less bureaucratic name, please send it along. I will be providing a prize for the winning entry. So the toolkit we're developing with partners will allow us to compare the potential investments by how well they reduce pollutants and how well they achieve the best results for human and ecological health. And that includes edible fish and swimming beaches and shellfish fish harvest, includes Chinook salmon, and of course, southern resident orcas. I expect the use of this toolkit will make it possible for us to have a data-based, a brass tacks conversation about how and when we spend public dollars and what we'll achieve with each of those investments. I encourage you to contact one of our King County employees, many of whom are enrolled in the conference today, to learn how you can get involved. Now, under this new initiative, I'm also empowering our staff to take smart, informed risks, to monitor results, to constantly learn, to always advance. Rather than focusing solely on risk mitigation, I want us to prioritize innovation, to embrace the latest advances in science and technology. Now, as the scientists on this call all know, stormwater is a still relatively, compared to some of the other areas in which we work, underdeveloped field of study. We're still learning. We're still updating our approaches, determining how best to respond to and incorporate climate change impacts, and to do so in a just and equitable way. Fortunately, we're part of a robust regional network of scientists who are helping determine which investments will achieve clean water, will achieve healthy habitat. I want to make this point clear. Polluted stormwater is a challenge too big for any single government, any single entity to fix alone. To move the needle, we must forge strong partnerships, bring together applied science, share resources, data, expertise, and we must do so quickly while we still have time. Polluted stormwater does not stop at jurisdictional boundaries, and neither should our approach. We are most effective as a regional government when we honor the strengths and contributions of all our partners, of tribes and cities, of universities and regulatory agencies, of private industries and innovators, of environmental advocates and justice advocates. By serving as the convener, King County, county governments can unify efforts throughout the Puget Sound region, can act as the catalyst for lasting, effective change. Now, this is where history once again offers us hope. 4 years ago, coincidentally, on the very night that Donald Trump was elected president, voters approved a $54 billion package to build a high-capacity transit that will finally connect the entirety of the central Puget Sound region. We mobilized cities and businesses and environmental leaders, and the people chose to fund a 116-mile network that knits together our metropolitan region, providing reliable transit that also protects water and air quality. It took decades of effort, generations of leaders, but we are getting it done. Today, we can apply that same successful regional approach to reduce stormwater pollution. So, here's the good news. We have everything we need to succeed. We're still the proud home of world-leading companies that are well-positioned to lead the nation's economic recovery, providing us with the prosperity, the financial heft to be able to do the job. We have the intellectual capital right here in this room, on this screen. And we have the will of the people, demanding action to protect what we love about this place and to restore what has been lost. The only thing we don't have is time to waste. None of us should go back to work tomorrow and simply advance the status quo, because we already know that approach will fail us. Instead, we should build on the momentum you're creating with this conference, invite other partners to join us, explore how to fundamentally change our region's approach to stormwater to one that is based on science and focused on outcomes. That is how we will succeed together. I want to thank you again for having me as your guest and for all you do each day to protect the natural environment that defines King County and defines the Pacific Northwest. Now, to our organizers, I want to thank you for advancing, for sending me a couple of questions that folks had asked, and I've taken the liberty of writing them down so I can respond to them here before I hand the mic back. So the first was a question about funding. I talked about resources. We're in a difficult time now with economic downturn, and of course, our funding in many areas of the government is severely strained. So the question is, how reliable are our funding sources for this work under the current economic conditions? Let me start by saying Washington State has the nation's #1 worst tax system. It is the most regressive, most volatile. It is a huge problem, and I once again call upon our legislators to take seriously the task of upending and fixing it. But unlike the sales tax, which is highly volatile, this work is funded by ratepayers. And ratepayers are, and the payment of rates for services is a far more reliable revenue source. Now, we don't necessarily anticipate an increase in funding. So I said we'd like to be able to invest more than that $9 billion if we're able to identify the funds. We don't have a place right now under the current arrangements where we can see that funding coming from. So if we're not going to see an increase in that funding, we are focusing on increasing positive outcomes. How do we get the most for each dollar we're investing? Now, I also was asked about the county's plans to operate differently. And the question is, what are we asking stakeholders to do differently? And this is a question I get with a lot of people, assuming there's some sort of covert or predetermined agenda. The reality is, I genuinely want to hear from our experts and from our partners who are developing the model that suggests which actions would achieve the best outcomes the soonest. I look at us investing $9 billion and I say $9 billion is significant money. And we should be able to identify the best ways to use those funds to achieve the outcomes we all seek. And that's why we've invested a little tiny bit of that, several million, into developing this scientific model. I will say these actions may be different than what we're doing right now, or what current regulations would compel us to do. And if they are, we will ask that King County and others be regulated in a different way, whatever way achieves the results that we all want to achieve for our region. I want to thank you again for everything that you do, whatever your role happens to be. And I want to thank you for having me here today to, again, talk about an issue that is truly central to my public service. And I'm now wanting to hand it back to Greg. Thank you so much.